Coach Wintrich, win the game on the trick play. Thanks for dropping by, coming on. We kind of go back in a weird way, back to Fort Bliss. We kind of overlapped, and then you got like headhunted to go do some awesome shit with the FBI, which we'll get into. Whatever you can get into, we'll definitely dive into that. I want to take a hot second, just kind of read through your resume, which is on your LinkedIn, because when I read this resume, it's almost like thinking of that you as like the Rob Thomas of strength and conditioning. Everyone knows the band Matchbox 20. Everyone knows the songs. But then to actually look through and see all the accomplishments you've done, no one really knows who you are. So we're going to dive into who you are today, because this resume in and of itself, without getting into the ins and outs of what we're going to discuss today, blows my mind. So I'm going to read this off, and if something's wrong, correct me, and then you'll tell LinkedIn that they got it wrong.
Okay, well, I write that. So if it's wrong, I got to talk to my
Okay, so it's your
secretary
fault.
and get it
Excellent.
right.
Okay, so it's your fault. Okay, good. Perfect. Never technology's problem. Never. Coaching assistant, Arizona State University. Assistant strength and conditioning coach, Utah State University. Director of strength and conditioning, the Citadel. Associate director of strength and conditioning, University of South Florida. Director of football performance, University of North Texas Denton. That's the Mean Green. Director of football performance at Brigham Young. Oh, what was that?
Mean Green.
Mean Green. Okay, yeah, so Mean Green. Director of football performance, Brigham Young University. Director of football performance, University of Virginia. Director of football performance, University of California, Los Angeles. And then our time when we met, H2F program director at Fort Bliss. Human performance program manager, United States Department of Justice, DC, Baltimore area, and currently the director of health and fitness at National Defense University. That is one hell of a resume thus far. It's not done. It's far from over. So can you just take me through ASU, kind of moving on to how you went from job to job? Because those are not small jobs. Those are not knick-knack jobs. Those are big boy power 4 jobs. Can you go through those, please? Starting it with
Yeah.
ASU. How'd you get in there?
Yeah. So I graduated college in 2002 from Kentucky Wesleyan, and really wanted to be a football coach, and didn't really know how to go about that. And I sent out about 180 emails and letters to coaches and programs all around the country, just trying to get a shot as a graduate assistant. And I got 2 responses back. One of them was from a school called Hardin Simmons, and I went out there and interviewed, and they offered me a graduate assistant spot there. And that GA spot, for anybody that's ever worked Division 3 or Division 2, or hell, even Division 1 AA, back in the day, you wear a lot of hats in those jobs. So the offer was to be the strength and conditioning coach and help coach the wide receivers on the football team. And my passion was to be a football coach, but I loved to train. I loved that part of it as a player. So I was like, yeah, I'll do that as well. And just ended up falling in love with it. I mean, just being in the weight room, working with the kids, it became very obvious to me very early that the sphere of influence of the strength coach is greater than that of the position coaches and the head coach, because the position coaches are only with them during the season, and then they go out and recruit, they go on vacation. The strength coach can be there with them in the off season. They can be there with them in the in season. They're there with them all the time, and they get to spend more time with the kids. And I was like, man, like I just really enjoy this. And so a buddy of mine was actually doing an internship at Arizona State with Joe Ken. And he was like, hey, man, you got to come out and check these guys out. So I went out there and spent a week there and just kind of watched training, and just absolutely had the top of my head taken off by like knowledge and tier system. And I mean, I was blown away. Like, you read a couple of books when you're in college and you get a degree and you're like, yep, I'm hot shit. I know what's going on. And I know all
Yeah.
there is to know about training. And then you go and meet Joe Ken and Mark Uyama and his crew. And it's like, okay, yeah, I don't know anything. And I got a lot of work to do. And so went out there and did the internship after that. So we spent that week there and learned from him, and then reached out and said, hey, I'd love to come intern with you. He was like, yeah, come out, work for free. Made a
Absolutely.
great impression there, worked hard, just wanted to get some information. And as luck would have it, one of his assistants left and took a head job somewhere, and he had an entry-level assistant spot, and asked me to compete for it, and did that. And man, I got that job, and that was a quantum leap from being a D3 graduate assistant to being a Division I Pac-10 full-time assistant strength coach with Joe Kenton.
Yeah.
And so, just what a tremendous opportunity to learn from one of the best in the business and one of the best minds in the field. There are things that I have done for the last 25 years that I can draw a straight line back to house and what he taught me, whether it be from a training standpoint or from an administrative standpoint. And it was super cool. Last year, I had the privilege of speaking at the TSAC in Norfolk and looked down, and in the front row, there's house.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
That's pretty powerful when, you have a mentor and someone that you look up to and someone who has meant a lot to you in your career is up in the front row watching you speak, 20 something years later. That's pretty cool. So then after that, Mark Uyama, who was House's top assistant at Arizona State, got the head job at Utah State, offered to take me out there as his top assistant. And I accepted that opportunity, did that for 2 years, was super ambitious, probably more ambitious than I had enough brains for, and really wanted to get a head job and wasn't getting much of a sniff for that. And I had an opportunity to be a graduate assistant at South Florida and work on my master's degree, because that was kind of the knock on me, is I didn't have a master's degree. So I went out and did a graduate assistantship at South Florida. I was there for about 4 months when the opportunity to Citadel came along, and it was a head job. Southern Conference, Citadel, South Carolina. It was like, yeah, that's
Storied
a no-brainer.
school. Yeah.
Yeah. So jumped in there, did that for 2 years. Had the opportunity to go back to South Florida as the associate director, spent 3 years there, and then got a phone call from Dan McCarney, who had been on staff with Jim Levitt there at South Florida, was also with Urban Meyer at Florida. And he had just gotten the head job at North Texas and was asking if I would want to be his head strength coach. Mike Canales, the offensive coordinator from South Florida, was close with Mac and said a lot of great things about me and asked if I could go out there with him. And me and Mac talked on the phone for about 10 minutes and he offered me the job. It was hilarious. I mean, just a great human being, a guy I look up to a tremendous amount. And so I go out to North Texas and I'm there for 4 years. And man, like what a tremendous experience to take a program that was a 1-win program the year before we got there and end up, taking it to a 9-win season. Arguably the best in school history. Talk about Baltimore. Zach Orr, who was a middle linebacker for us, is the defensive coordinator at Baltimore right now for the Ravens. And so just a lot of great connections. A lot of those kids are coaches now. A lot of those kids reach back out to me and just reflect on the time that we had together there and how good that was and how that influenced them to want to coach. And so there's a lot of really meaningful memories there. Got offered the opportunity to go up to BYU and work with Bronco Mendenhall. Their strength coach had just retired after 14 years of being there. Very old school approach. And I was able to bring, Kevin Heiberger, my best guy, and a couple other folks from North Texas with me up there and really kind of have a complete paradigm shift in how they looked at training and what they did, and had a blast up there. It was a really cool opportunity. Great kids, great environment. BYU fans are absolutely rabid for BYU sports, especially football. And so that was super cool to be there. Bronco took the head job at Virginia. And so, now we're moving out to Virginia. We're at UVA for 2 years and, Chip's in his kind of in-between year after the 49ers and was kind of looking to get back into football, I think, and was traveling around the country. He came to our spot and spent a couple of days with us, and we had an opportunity to visit with him a little bit, just talking about sports science and what he and Coach Rad did there at Oregon and what they were doing with GPS and the way that they mapped out their practices. And from that visit, he calls Bronco and asks for permission to interview me for the job at UCLA. And off we go, now we're on the West Coast and with Chip Kelly and his crew and trying to, get UCLA going. And that was a unique experience. I would never want to live in Los Angeles again. All my California friends, I'm sorry, but that big city's not for me. But man, learned a ton, got an opportunity to just do a ton of stuff. We had all the gadgets and sports science tools and nutrition resources. I mean, we were very well resourced, and that was a really special opportunity to work in that environment. Excuse me. 2020 kind of ruined me on ball and ruined me on the NCAA and ruined me on just the whole college experience. We can get into that more if you want.
Oh,
But
yes. Oh, we will.
suffice to say that I felt like I'd reached the end of my time in college athletics. I felt like I was no longer fit for command in that space, no longer fit for leadership. And so I made the decision to start looking at the tactical space because everywhere I'd been, starting at the Citadel, I really clung on to the military and the special operations aspect. And so it was like, well, what better opportunity to serve people that have meant a lot to me, serve people that have had a lot to do with the success that I've had. We can talk about mindset training and how the military had a huge influence on what I was doing with the kids, really from North Texas on. But it was like, man, there's this whole world of people that are helping our soldiers, that are helping our airmen, that are helping our Marines, that are helping our sailors, that are helping first responders. Why not go help them and get into that space? And so, man, a lesson in humility. 20 years of experience, Division I, last 10 all as, Division I head guy. 3 of those are Power 5 schools at the time. So I thought, man, people are going to be tripping over themselves to call me and to have me, and sent out dozens of resumes, applied for dozens of jobs, and got zero. Not one phone call, not an email, even for somebody to tell me to go fuck off. Like,
Really?
nothing.
So even on like gov jobs, or just you were applying that and they just saw that resume and they were like, nah.
I had connections with people. Like, I had inside people who talked to people that were making the hires and didn't even get a call back. And so I tell you that story because it was a great lesson in humility. Like, just about the time you think you're hot shit and that everybody's going to want you there and that you're going to be the hottest ticket coming out, I got a good bite of humble pie, and I needed that. That was great. Like, I was really glad that happened. And then, as it were, the opportunity at Fort Bliss came available through Josh Woods, who actually had come out and visited us when he was at, oh man, crap, where was he? He was at UNC Charlotte as an assistant there under Chris Laskowski. They came out and spent a week with us, and we took really good care of those guys, and he remembered that. And so he helped me get in with H2F. And, next thing I know, I'm a GS-13 working over at Fort Bliss as the program director for 3rd Armored Brigade Combat Team. And that was awesome, man. I had a great time. You would talk about drinking out of the fire hose now.
Like, it is.
You know how it
crazy.
Is when you get over to the military side and people start talking, and it's like a whole different language, and you're like, what? Wait, I had a yellow legal pad, and I wasn't even learning what was in the meeting. Like, I was just writing acronyms and then going back and just Googling stuff on my computer. And then I got really lucky. My nutrition health educator was a 16-year veteran of the civil affairs branch. And I said, hey, man, will you start coming and sitting in these meetings with me and just kind of like being my interpreter, like be my terp, help me out with this. And so he'd sit there and we could kind of bounce things back and forth. And he could get an ear on what was going on, and he could kind of help me because, as you know, it's completely different than college athletics and knowing who to go to. Where are the lines of money? Where are the lines of supply? Where are the lines of communication? Excuse me. Super important. I did that for about a year. I was approached by O2X about a role with the FBI, and came out and visited Virginia, met the leadership of the unit, and was like, wow, this is if H2F and the Army was like a varsity high school team, this was going to the pros, working with these guys. And so it was a very small special operations unit, very niche, unique mission. And I was like, this is a one of one job in the world. Like, there is one of these units in the United States, and there's one of these units staffed with a human performance person. I want that job. And so went there and man, just absolutely fell in love with it. The people, the mission, super unique. And so just being able to be in a place where you're well respected, where your services are highly sought after, and you get to work with just the best people in the world. That's what I've been able to do for the last 4 years.
Mhm.
And an opportunity popped up. I wasn't looking for it, but three different people sent this job to me on usajobs.gov and were like, dude, this job was made for you. And I looked at it and was like, National Defense University. Okay, it's an academic setting for the tactical community. 20 years of college athletics experience, 5 years of tactical experience. Yeah, I'm going to give that a shot. Uh, didn't think I'd really have any chance at it. And boy, was I wrong. December rolls around after about 6 months of interviews and jumping through hoops for the government. I started about 2.5 weeks ago. So loving the new job. It's a much more administrative role. Like whereas at the bureau, I was doing a lot more hands-on work. I was a program manager, but I was
Mhm.
on an island there for the most part, working with those guys hands-on. This job is much more administrative. I have a team of 9, a physician, a nurse, 3 psychologists, a physical therapist, a registered dietitian, an athletic trainer, and an EMT, all under my leadership. So get to work with them on developing and providing health and fitness initiatives for 600 to 700 students that are of the 5 and above ranking. So, like your major lieutenant commander ranking all the way up to like 1 stars. So more advanced age population. The average age is 42. But they're all coming there to take the next step in their career. They all have stuff going on.
Mhm.
And so what we offer from a health and fitness standpoint is in high demand. And it's a lot of fun to go in there and just see the stories and hear what the people are about and find all the different ways that the people that I get to work with on my staff can serve the people who go out and serve us every day. And man, what a great opportunity to lead and bring the resources that I've learned and developed over the last 25 years to bear with the future strategic leaders of our country.
Mhm. Yeah, there's a lot I want to unpack with that epic journey you have, but before we get off track, you talking about National Defense University, is the idea of this university and what you're doing specifically with these higher level officers to get them to have a better understanding of health and fitness and strength and conditioning and how the body works, so that in the future military, this is more of an emphasis? Is that the idea? Or am I way
Well,
off
I
base?
think you got kind of a two-headed monster here that you're looking at. Number
Okay.
one, you're looking at people who several of them were high speed. I mean, there are people who work in the special operations community that are now going to school there, but they're not going downrange as special operators anymore. They're working in more of a command level um, uh, position, staff officer position, going to the Pentagon and working in places like that. And so the dynamic changes dramatically because now I'm not being physically fit to go downrange. And in fact, I'm not actually having a physical requirement except for my PT test anymore. So I'm sitting behind a desk. I'm not jumping out of airplanes. I'm not running and gunning. I'm not shooting and scooting. I'm not doing all those things. Um, and I start gaining weight. And a lot of those injuries that I've been kind of putting off are starting to manifest themselves in bad ways, my back, my hip, my shoulder. How do we teach really what is an executive command tactical athlete how to take care of their bodies the next 15 to 20 years of their career,
Oh, God.
and then the longevity model beyond that, and how important that is? Like, what is your health and fitness going to look like when you retire? Because a lot of these guys, and I haven't seen it fortunately yet, and hopefully we can get ahead of it, but I've heard stories from the staff that I work with now where it's like you get these folks who come in, they've been doing all these high speed jobs, and then they get a desk job, and within 10 years they have had a heart attack or they've had a stroke or whatever, because their fitness changes, their mindset changes, their job change, and their lifestyle habits change with it.
Yes.
And so our purpose there is, hey, you're not running 3 miles every day, you're not doing the O course every day, you're not living in this high speed life. How do you still make your personal wellness, it's not even just health and fitness, but your personal wellness, a priority? And then in doing so, giving them the tools that not only can they help themselves, but then push that knowledge and that importance downstream to their
Yes.
subordinate and their
Yes.
subordinate commands.
Okay.
And so I think The Army's doing a great job with the H2F program. The Air Force has a ton of initiatives. The Marine Corps and Navy, specifically the Marine Corps, are crazy about fitness. Like their reputation is well earned. What we would like to be able to develop, and this is a long-term goal, is an executive command athlete, tactical athlete fitness model in the shape of H2F. So if you can think about where the H2F works when the brigade footprint, you're working with those soldiers, kind of at the 04 level and below. We're looking at what's going on with those colonels, what's going on with those lieutenant colonels, what's going on with those guys with the stars on their shoulders. How are we helping them maintain good physical fitness, good mental readiness, good nutritional readiness, and deal with the issues and stress and the resiliency that they need to go in and day out and do their jobs. And their jobs become extremely high stress because they're on call constantly. They're sitting behind a desk constantly. They constantly got to make decisions, a lot of times on very little sleep. And so how do we teach them to have themselves be as ready as possible for the fight now that the fight looks dramatically different than what they were used to the previous 15, 20 years of their career?
Yeah. What are the, at that age and that much road mileage on their body, what are the two most like damaging physical attributes you see in guys and gals in your classes?
Well, like by the time they get to us, I think the sitting thing is really, sitting's the new smoking. We hear that.
I was going to say that. Damn it. You took my line. Yeah.
And so, and they say it too. Like you.
Oh, do they? Okay.
Oh yeah. Like, the hips and lower backs are getting worse because they've been in kit for a long period of time before they get to these roles. And now they're in these roles and they're sitting more. So now you take, bad backs, bad hips, and then you sit on them for a long period of time. You're just adding stagnancy to dysfunction, and that's a formula for disaster. And so being able to help them unpack that and give them tools and resources, man, it's super valuable and super fun.
Absolutely. So,
and then the second part, you asked for two.
Yes.
The second part is fueling. I'm gonna add two to that. The second part is fueling, and then sleep. The demands are so high, and the food resources are not great. So how do we teach them to make better food choices because they're not burning as many calories as they used to from a physical standpoint? And then sleep is just wrecked because while they were going down range and while they were doing their jobs and while they were in the military, everybody brags about, yeah, I can live on 4 hours of sleep or I can live on 5 hours of sleep. You cannot operate like that, especially in jobs where your brain is what the government's paying you for now, not your body anymore. And so we've got to be able to work on correcting sleep issues. And that's why we've got a phenomenal team of psychologists that work with our guys specifically on that, as well as job stress and resiliency and those types of things. So if you think about like executive level coaching, that's what our psych team does a lot of. And they're also there for clinical type work if necessary, but a majority of the work they do with our students is the executive coaching model.
You have to forgive my ignorance on this. I got to ask a question. It sounds stupid and played out, but I'm going to ask it. Have you ever seen the show Billions?
I have not. No, sir.
Okay. In the show Billions, obviously multi-billionaires making money, doing what billionaires do. They have this woman on staff who is a psychologist and helps them keep their mind sharp so they can do their job efficiently, like just activate when they need to activate. Is that something you see needed in that world when it comes to sharpness of the mind and adding sleep?
Absolutely. Okay. I mean, it's vital to what we're trying to ingrain. Again, it's, to me, what we're doing is providing tools, right? Like we can't tell them how to do their job. There's no way that we could even begin to do that because there's so many different roles and responsibilities that these folks are going to go off and do when they graduate from here. And so what tools can we give them so they can self-correct, they can self-assess, they can develop healthy strategies for themselves as they move forward. So I think really how many tools can we put in the toolbox and teach them to use so that as they go forward, they're in a great place to take care of themselves. They've got resources. And they know they can always come back to us, but give them the tools and resources they need to to go out into their new roles and be successful.
Yeah. How long are the courses that you give? Is it like an associate's degree level
No,
type of time or
it's a master's degree in 9 months.
okay.
These,
Oh, oh,
very typical
delicious.
military operation. We're going to
Okay.
take 2 years of school
Just
and
jam
squeeze it
it.
down
Just
into
jam
nine
it. Block
months.
schedule it. Jam it down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a very rigorous academic schedule, and we teach a course. We teach an elective, a very popular elective. We have 100 applicants, at least 100 applicants every semester. We only can take 28, and so that's part of what we're doing. But yeah, 9 months, 600 to 700 students. Um, there's a lot to squeeze into a short period of time.
Yeah. What's your lecture size in your classroom?
It's 14.
14. Oh, it's an intimate group. Okay. How many
Mm-hmm.
times a
And
day are you spending that?
it's twice a week. So
Okay. Okay.
there's two cohorts. Those are the 28. So first semester, second semester, 14 in each cohort. They can get electives on Tuesdays and they can get electives on Wednesdays, and that is it. So yeah,
Okay. Does this count towards any advancement they have? Does that go?
it's just an elective. They have to
Okay.
take
Just
an
okay.
elective, so it's just one of the courses they take.
Okay. Awesome. Well, if we could go back to a macro perspective, go back, not all the way back, but just your time at UCLA and start working our way forward. UCLA, football strength and conditioning. If you had to give an elevator pitch of your philosophy during your time at UCLA, which is the accumulation of all your time from ASU all the way through, what is that elevator pitch on your philosophy if you were trying to get a recruit to come to UCLA at that time?
Long-term athletic development, providing the right training for the right athlete at the right time in his career. That's it.
You said that a couple times, haven't you?
There's been more than once.
And more months. This is great. Okay. So when you're taking that idea, that philosophy, and that's your driver, what does the off-season week of training look like?
Yeah, I got to go back now.
Yeah.
It's been
Oh,
a
yeah.
minute.
I'm going to make you work. I'm going to make you
And
work
so
for
it,
this.
it depends on obviously the time of year,
Mhm.
and what our goals were. So a couple things that were unique about the way that we developed our program. We wanted to have a system of training, not a philosophy. And I didn't like the concept of a philosophy because I felt like if you got locked into a philosophy, you couldn't change and evolve. And I wanted
Yes.
us to constantly tinker and adjust and play with what we were doing in a way that made it very much like a living entity that we could adjust as we went. And so what we did for that model was develop 5 levels of training. And at UCLA, we leveled them white developmental, and then we had gold, blue, delta, and elite. Those were the levels that we had. And so the idea was that a kid comes in and you've never trained these kids before, and it doesn't matter like how good they look or how athletic they are, how many stars they have, or what position they're going to play for you, if they're going to be a starter, a backup, or a walk on. You don't know them. You don't know what they've got going on. And yeah, they get a physical, but there's always stuff hiding. Can you hear me?
I hear you great. Yep.
I think this is dying. Can you hear me okay?
I hear you great. Yep.
Okay. So you, can you hear me now?
I hear you now. Yep.
Okay. How's that? Is that good?
Yeah, great. I hear you. Yep.
Okay. So yeah, the intent was to develop a system where when a kid comes in his freshman year, we're getting a very good developmental baseline. And the first thing that we would do is start them off on body weight movement. Conditioning, aka fitness, was also a huge problem. Work capacity, specifically if you're wanting to play in a Chip Kelly offense or practice at a Chip Kelly practice. The tempo was insane. I thought we practiced hard at BYU in Virginia and fast. This was probably 3 times the speed and volume that we would see at BYU in Virginia, the way that Chip organizes practices. And so getting kids in phenomenal shape was super important because a huge tenet of what we were wanting to do from a training standpoint was reduce injury. We would always tell the players and tell the coaches there's no ability like availability. You can run a 4.2 40, but if you're standing next to me on the sideline with a pulled hamstring every other week, you're no good to the team and you're not having fun playing ball. And so, keeping the players available and healthy and fit was super important. So that base development gave us a couple of things. One, it helped us develop base level fitness, GPP, with the athletes. Second, we could ingrain technique. We don't believe that you can develop technique in a competitive environment. And if we're putting a shitload of weight on the bar, or asking the kids to lift heavy right off the bat, they're not going to learn technique properly. And so we would emphasize technique not only in our lifting programs, our physical strength programs, but our speed program was extremely important. I had a great coach on my staff, Kevin Heiberger, who came up under Lawrence Seagrave at IMG, and our speed program was bar none the best in the country for football. And so what he was able to do with those kids and ingrain in them early on then would set the tone for the next 3 to 4 years that we would have those kids. So that program would typically last anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks. It really depended on the kids and how hard they were willing to work. But it really gave us an opportunity to drive like what kind of work ethic we wanted. Like, you thought you trained hard in high school. Yeah, it's cute. This is what it's going to take to be able to make it at this level. This is why we're going to train this way. So teaching them how to train. When we went from the white developmental, they move up into blue. That would typically be their first off season. And then that's where we would kind of use a similar model to Jim Wendler's 5-3-1.
Okay.
There's going to be some mix of your max effort strength type stuff in there, but a good balance of hypertrophy type work, because you're still dealing with freshmen. They need to be able to grow and develop. Then what we had was a bridge program. So ideally the kids would move up into Delta, and that would be most of your like more advanced kids. Delta was essentially pulled from the triphasic model, and we used triphasic for our Delta program. If kids were not ready for Delta, but they were beyond the blue developmental stage, we had one we called Gold, and that was like a bridge program. Those were kind of like your long developers, your baby giraffes that, 6'7" offensive tackle that hadn't quite learned how to walk and chew gum yet, probably would end up in that program and need to develop through there. And that was kind of your slow development guys. But that just gave those kids time to grow and develop. And then the elite program, we got into a lot of the velocity-based training stuff, a lot more of the athlete-driven type training, where we would allow the auto-regulation type stuff, where we would allow the athlete's body, because there was a trust level built up there between us and the kid, to where we could say, hey, this is what we want from you today. How do you feel? What do you want from a training standpoint, from a movement standpoint? This is what we need to accomplish. Here's what the menu is. What best sets you up for success? And then we could use some auto-regulation type methods to have an idea of when they hit enough, and when enough was enough, and when we need to stop.
Yeah.
And so the intent was, early on, you don't know what you need, and you're just going to do what we tell you to do, to get to a progression to where the kids could, under our guidance, choose your own adventure, dictate a training model that they knew their bodies, they were living in that space. How do I best set myself up for success, because I know what makes me feel the best? And then we were there to just kind of play referee to make sure, we didn't go too far one way or the other. We used, force plate data for that. We used Kendo data for that. We used GPS data for that. All those things kind of created like an onion, to where we had multiple levels of assessment, and, looking at kids self-report. How do you feel? Where are you sore? Coach's eye, watching them and kind of seeing how they looked, and then looking at the data and the hard numbers and being able to say, okay, this is what we're getting back from the training. And then, to me, my favorite part was the relationships, like just being able to sit down and talk to a kid about, like, hey man, how you feel? What's going on today? What do you think best sets you up for success? And when they're invested at that level, it's a lot of fun. Kids come in and they just like, what do I got today? Just put it on. I just want to go. It's a lot different than when a kid comes in as like excited and curious and wants to understand the why behind what we're doing and how to get it done. That's a really fun relationship to have.
Yeah. Yeah. When I was at James Madison as an intern, in which we weren't being paid, because I was still back in the day, we weren't paid, the guys that would ask those questions were the freaks.
Yeah.
Those are the guys that were squatting 6-7 plates. They were benching over 4 plates. Like, those were the guys. Was that your experience as well? The guys that really, like, quote unquote, like really gave a shit about the weight room, they're the ones that got the most out of it.
Oh, absolutely. And that was something that, we made really from when we got to BYU. Is something we started doing, was like doing briefing, like pre-mission briefs before every workout. Like we would make short slideshows. It was a 5, maybe 8 minute brief, but like get up on the board and show the kids what we're doing. Here's what the plan is. Like we developed like a practice script almost. It looked very much like a coach's call sheet. And it was like a script, and it'd be like, all right, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this. But I wanted the kids to see like how much time and energy and effort went into laying this thing out. It wasn't just some shit we like woke up and rolled in the morning and wrote on a marker board and said, all right, here, we're going to do this today. Like there's a lot of time and energy and effort that went into the plan. And then that gave us a great opportunity where if we were teaching something new, if there was a new speed exercise, there was a new strength exercise, we would have video there. And we could coach the video so the kids would see it in the video. We'd go down on the field, we'd warm up, we'd get to that part of the training session. They would hear and see it again, and then they were able to execute it. And so like you're just adding another repetition of training in there for their eyes and their ears before you get out on the field. And so that was super helpful. And then I also use that space to give our support staff a platform. So our athletic trainers, our dietitians, our sports psychs, our academic folks, to be able to come in like, hey, we've got the kids all here in one space. You've got 2 minutes, go. Like what does the dietitian need or the nutritionist need to teach the kids about protein intake? Or what does the athletic trainer need to talk to the kids about hydration? Or what can the psych tell the kids about his or her services? We're at the University of Virginia. The sports psych, because of the way that we integrated him into our program, his utilization went up 600% in 1 year because he was no longer the guy that the kids had to go to because of failed drug tests. They went because they knew that this was a guy who cared about them, who loved them, and who wanted to see them be successful. And we put a face to the position and a person and a humanity to it. And the kids wanted to go there when they were homesick or their girlfriend broke up with them or they were struggling with performance anxiety or whatever it was. Now there was a place that they could go. It wasn't me and my staff. It wasn't the coaches who were going to affect playing time and scholarships. There was a safe place for them to go do that. So I always wanted us to be like the Scottie Pippen of the athletic department. Like we're not the stars of the show, but we're behind the scenes making everybody else better and being that hub where if we're doing our jobs really, really well, we make everybody else better around us because of that. And that was super important for us.
Yeah, to give an example of that, I'm going to make a stab at this and tell me if I'm wrong. You're going in a day, if you're doing blocks, if you're doing a little more hypertrophy, you do something to the effect of, you have these sports nutritionists come in, 2 minutes go, sports nutritionist says, hey, you're going to do a lot of hypertrophy this week, next 2 weeks. This is what I want your place to look like in percentages, and this is why. And it's like, all the kids are like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And then if you watch them, as you're at the dining hall, like checking them off as they're coming in, which I've done countless times, they come in, they start calling each other out on not eating enough of this, not eating for that. Like, why do you have that bowl of applesauce? That's not going to do it. Like things like that. Like, this is what you're talking about?
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, it's great. It's a great idea. Was that massaged into the NCAA regulated amount of time?
Of course it was. Come on, Joe.
Of course it was. Good. Yeah, so this is a big reason why I wanted to have you on, because when we had lunch together, you brought up an idea that I had never heard of, and it was two-board pressing virtually all the time. Can you go into that? Just forget. I've told people this; they don't believe me. Go into why you were almost damn near exclusively a two-board and how it translated over to full range.
Well, when you got to go up to the head coach's office and explain that your starting guard was out for potentially a year because he popped his pec bench pressing, that's not a comfortable, especially when you're new. That's not a comfortable conversation to go have.
Oh, that was a you conversation?
Oh, yeah, it happened.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I didn't hear that part of the story at lunch. What the hell? You're holding out on me.
And for me, like, if a kid got hurt in the weight room or on the field, the trainer wasn't going to tell the coach. I was.
Right.
Because that's my responsibility. The trainer didn't hurt the kid. The kid didn't get hurt playing basketball or doing football practice. He got hurt in something that I led. And so the coach needed to hear from me what happened. I need to take ownership for that, because I would tell the kids, I would tell the coaches, like, you should never get hurt in the training process or as a result of the training process. And so I took complete ownership of that as the leader of the program. That if something happened, something bad happened, they were going to hear from me first. And so, I was at BYU, and we were just, and it wasn't even like a heavy day. We weren't even going for it.
Yeah.
I think the kid had like 85 or 87.5% on the bar,
Yeah.
and he lowered it and just went to turn it over and popped his pec. Thankfully it didn't roll up, it laid down, and he just was in a sling. We got him back about 12 weeks later, and he was able to play most of the season. But it was kind of like, I've never seen anybody injure a pec or a shoulder on a 2-board press. And kind of started working that out and talking to some guys about it, thinking about it. And it's like, my 2-board press is about 102% of my bench press. And so I'll trade 2% on a bench press for 12 months of pec rehab any day of the week.
100%.
And not having to take that awful walk, the walk of shame up to the head coach's office to explain that we lost a starter or lost any kid. Like, I mean, shit, even if he's a walk-on that's just going to help on the practice squad, that kid's not there to tear his pec and to be a weight room guy. He's there to play football.
Right.
And it's not fair to the kids. And so we developed a rule that anytime we were at 85% or above, that there would be a 2-board applied to that. And that just, it saved our shoulders. We had a dramatic decrease in our anterior labrum issues, and we had no more pecs after that. All of our pecs were fine. We never had a strain. We never had a pop. So if we go to 100%, we go to 102%. We were doing, triphasic models where kids were lowering 6-count eccentrics with, 90, 95% in their hands, touching it to a 2-board. And again, if 2% saves me 12 years, I'll take that all the rest of my career. I will never, and you can say that I'm a pussy or whatever for not going to my chest. That's fine. We're not power lifters. They're football players. And I'm okay with that.
I mean, I came from a system at James Madison where we did do a lot of horizontal pressing, and there was a lot of boards. Don't get me wrong. There was a lot of floor press as well. And then I spent a decade at a gym that really openly champions, the full range bench. I find it, to your point, I find it very difficult to justify for an American football player or many athletes in general doing a full range horizontal press until we're getting to the point of we're prepping you for a combine, we're prepping you for a pro day. You need to know how it feels. Even then, I don't know if you're understanding leg drive and your upper back is strong enough. I don't know if you really need to go to the touch for that. So I completely agree.
I think that's a conversation to be had. But if you're an offensive lineman and you're here on a guy, you're fucked anyway. Like,
you're toppling over. Right.
And so, again, you can give me all the functional arguments you want or whatever that sounds and looks like. All I know is that from 2015 until I walked away in 2021, we didn't have an anterior labrum tear, a new anterior labrum tear, or a pec injury in that time. So maybe those two things aren't positively correlated. I think they are.
Right.
Or there's not a causation there, but there's definitely a correlation there.
Do you feel that when you were there those 4 years and you're working with kids and they're back squatting, do you find the back squat takes away from the press, or do you feel more hinges take away from the press when you did the squat or the hinge heavy? So I've heard either one. I've heard.
I didn't feel like I've never even heard that before. The squat takes away from the press.
Yeah, if you're driving a heavy squat, that heavy axial load, and then 3 days later, you go to press, and the press is not so great. I've been told that a lot by strength coaches. I'm more of a fan. If I'm gonna do any heavy lower body work, I'm gonna do it on Friday, so they have theoretically 2 days, quote unquote, off to actively recover.
We were the same way.
Okay, yeah, okay, yeah. One more topic on your time at UCLA with Chip Kelly, and you mentioned the beginning where the pace and the volume of a Chip Kelly practice is ungodly. Leading up to the point where, okay, we're going through summer, getting ready to start practicing. How do you ramp up and taper to lead into that? Or was there a taper, or how'd you handle that?
So the first year was really hard because we didn't have any data to go off of, and I hadn't seen it. I saw it in spring ball, and that helped a little bit. But that first spring ball was tough, and that first summer, because we hadn't seen a fall camp with him, was difficult. But then once we were able to see a fall camp and see a full season, and we had numbers, we could then have a really good idea of what that needed to look like. And so, looking at high speed distance on our GPS, looking at total yardage moved, those kinds of things really drove what we were doing during the course of the off season. And so we were able to start tapering later as we got a little bit better about it. But the thing that this is why the NCAA sucks is that they give you 8 weeks to train for 22 weeks. They give you 8 hours to train for 20 hours. And 20, it's not even 20 hours.
Yeah.
It's so much more than that. And so physiologically speaking, you're setting yourself up for failure. Kids need to get bigger, they need to get stronger, but then they also need to be conditioned, not just in the sense that their aerobic system needs to be viable for them to be able to go do this, but they also need to be conditioned in the sense that their body needs to be exposed to the forces of high speed distance, of force absorption that are going to be put on them out on the field so that they don't hurt themselves. To me, that's just a very simple calculus. How do you go from working out 8 hours a week to working out 20 hours a week and not think that something is going to go wrong with that model? I think it would be way better. I'm getting on my soapbox now, but
no, do it. Stay on that.
Do what the NFL does. You've got some mini camps, you've got some opportunities for those guys to come in and get some ramp ups, and you can really kind of create some cool periodized programs to set those kids up for success, and not this thing where the coaches have been gone for 5 weeks on vacation. They're sitting on the beach getting a suntan, drinking a Mai Tai, and then they come back and they are just pissing hot. They are ready to run the kids through a fucking wall. Yeah. And you and me and my staff and the kids have been there for 8 weeks just logging it out. Everybody's exhausted. And then you get this group of guys that come back oh, we gotta go now. It's motherfucker, we've been going. Yeah. You've been sitting on the beach. Don't tell me if it's time to go now. We've been going. Yeah. Welcome to the party.
Right.
So I would love to see something where there's some just some intermittent work where they can get and do that stuff.
Yeah. How many years do you think we're away from it becoming that NFL model?
2 or 3. I think.
I was gonna say. Yeah.
I think this is off of the subject of human performance, but I think the big boys, the big money makers, are going to pull away from the NCAA and pull away from college athletics. The college athletic model, it's going to be a very semi-pro model that the schools will be able to pay the kids. Some of those athletic departments will probably become, incorporated, kind of like you see Kansas and Florida's athletic department. They're run like a business. They're not funded by money that comes from the school or the state or the federal government. So then they don't have to worry about Title IX, and they don't have to worry about making sure that the other sports are getting a piece of what they're making, and they'll just pay the kids, they'll pay the coaches, they'll do whatever they want. They'll come up with their own set of rules. Schools won't be having to profit share the profitable ones, giving money to the ones that can't make money. I think that the top money makers will pull away, and then they'll come up with the rules that are best for themselves and push that direction and go that way. And then at some point, that's going to cause the players to need to unionize to protect themselves, because it'll just be this kind of back and forth. The pendulum has swung very hard in favor of the players since 2020, when they had control over coming back or not, and we needed them to come back so that the whole sports industrial complex didn't collapse because they weren't playing football. Yeah. And with it, athletic departments around the world. And so once they had that leverage, they haven't let go of it. Something will force it to come back the other way, and then it'll kind of find a happy medium, I think, like the NFL has done.
Yeah. I'm so glad you said that about the percentage time that we get to work with the kids versus then what the NCAA once allows us to versus what they're going to have them do. Because that's usually something that no one ever says, but it's absolutely true. And mathematically, you can look at it. It's not difficult to do that math. And then when the coach comes back, he is, to your point, pissing hot, and he wants them to just start puking because that's what he did in 1970. That's it's not the way it should be done. So this kind of parlays into the next question I want to ask, which you mentioned in your run through of your journey so far. got to 2020 and you're like, I think it's time for me to pack up and get out. It's the end. Do you mind going into like what led you to that epiphany? What led you to that region?
Yeah. So working in LA and being in California and being in the Pac-12, the rules were insane. I mean, like
How so?
when we came back, the COVID restrictions were ridiculous. Like we could have 10 kids on the field at a time. They had to be 10 yards apart. They couldn't share equipment. We couldn't go inside our weight room, so we had to drag all of our equipment outside. Um, you know, you got about an hour with them because you're only working out 10 kids a day and you've got to work out 100 dudes.
Oh yeah, that's
So like,
rough.
you know, and we're coming up with all these ways to do things. And it was like, that was kind of the first, like, this is stupid. Like you listen to these doctors and these, you know, administrators talk about like, well, we're going to have the kids come back. And I was talking to my PT about this today. They're going to wear a mask over their faces that's going to cover like a cloth mask, and then they'll put their helmet on. Their helmet will have a visor, but it's also going to have a mouth shield, plastic mouth shield to keep them from you know, spitting on each other. It's like, what are we doing? Like, this is going to cause more harm. A kid is going to have some type of a cardiac event from doing this. You know, August in Gainesville, Florida, or you know, August in Los Angeles. It's 120 degrees on the turf, and you're going to waterboard a kid at practice with his own sweat. How is that better than, you know, this will probably get your podcast canceled, but
no, I love it.
What was
Do
essentially
it.
the flu, you know, like,
yeah,
this is stupid. Like our population is not dying from COVID. And if it's this dangerous, and I said this in the meeting, if it's this dangerous,
cheers.
Why are we coming back?
Yeah.
Why are we coming
back?
Right. Like maybe we should just stay locked up in our houses. Like that face shield, when we're tackling each other and sweating on each other and bleeding on each other, like that face shield ain't stopping any bodily fluid transmission. Like it's all out there. So the lack of common sense really bothered me. And then just kind of seeing like the pendulum shift in favor of the kids with money. And this, I'm saying this doesn't sound great, but I'll clean it up.
Yeah.
With money, being able to transfer as much or as often as they wanted, the NIL thing. I am very pro NIL. I want the kids to be able to profit. I made a very comfortable 6-figure salary for a number of years. Our players who we are profiting off of their performance should be able to be compensated appropriately for that. What I didn't agree with was the NCAA sitting on their hands for over 30 years saying, no, they're amateurs, they can't make money, while the president of the NCAA is making over $2 million a year. The coaches are making $10 million a year. And the kids are getting $2,000 a month for rent and the stipend. And we're saying, well, they're amateurs. It's like, they're not amateurs. But we waited too long and we, being the NCAA, waited too long until there's absolutely zero moral high ground for them to stand on. And we needed the kids to come back and play, or else the whole system collapsed. And so they got what they wanted. And now we have a model where it's worse than the NFL because there's so much tampering and there's so much lack of longevity for the players of staying in any one place. You can't develop a kid. Like my whole thing, kind of to your point about my elevator pitch, was long-term athletic development. And I remember in the off season of 2021, it was January, I sat down with my staff and I had a PowerPoint up there and I was like, guys, we are no longer in the business of long-term athletic development. That has ended, because there is not one of these kids that we can guarantee is going to be here for the next training cycle, because automatically you just saw the portal immediately, kids just jumping in. So then what happens? Like culturally, you're not working to develop a culture within your program, which was something that from North Texas on became a real passion of mine. Like I was less concerned about the X's and O's of strength and conditioning and more concerned about the mindset of our players and the team building aspect of, you know, taking a group of boys, putting them together and having them perform as a single fighting unit like men, and to come out the other side of that as men. That's what I was passionate about. And, you know, looking at the model, it was like, this is going to go away. And in a lot of ways, we're going to be like NFL strength coaches, where these kids are going to have Uncle Joe, who's been training them since they were, knee high to a grasshopper, and Uncle Joe knows everything, and I'm worth $5 million as my NIL star quarterback. Uncle Joe's going to train me, because if you don't let Uncle Joe train me, I'm going to go over to your rival school and train with them or play for them. Yeah. The head coaching and listen to the strength coach and go, nope, Uncle Joe, you got it. And so that's what you see in the NFL, where guys will pay the fine to just go train with their own dude. And with the turnover, who can blame them? I was fortunate when I was at UCLA to get close to Russell Wilson and see like how $100 million athlete takes care of themselves, or watch Tom Brady and how like the team that he surrounds himself with. It's like, that's what a dude that a professional looks like. They have a team of people that are vested in them, not the program, not the organization, but the athlete. And it's the same people year in and year out. That's why those guys are so successful, because they take such great care of themselves. And that model is coming to college. I know we don't want to believe that, but I think it is, because it's just the players have all the control now.
Yeah, 100%.
And so going back to your question, just was like, it's just not a space. It's not what I signed up for. It's not what I was passionate about. And it was just not the place for me to be a leader anymore. Like, I just kind of felt like a dinosaur, and I don't regret that for 1 second. Like, I think that was the best decision I could have made professionally. I think it was the best decision I could have made personally. I've grown a lot as a man from having left there. I feel like I'm more rational, I'm more responsible, I'm less neurotic, working in a space, and just the satisfaction. Like, I loved working with kids, and that was awesome. But man, like, when you work with people who put their lives on the line, like, we pretend like college athletics is this life or death thing, and I was just as guilty of it. Train the way you fight the way you train and fight like your life depended on it, or the people around you life depended on it. Like, that was the mindset that we tried to put in our kids. But you win a game on Saturday or lose a game on Saturday, everybody comes home on Sunday, and we're fine. Like, we'll come back and do it again. These people, they fuck up this much. People don't come home. People die. Right. And even if they do it right, they might not come home. And so being able to give those people tools that bring them home to their wives and their kids day in and day out, that's where I belong.
Yes. I'm going to start calling you the coaching king of segues, because what you just said is something I've told people for the last 4 years. And it angers a lot of people. But now that you said it, I'm going to say it. And you're going to agree with it. We're going to have a great conversation on it. We talk about your time with the FBI. In that, I have a lot of respect for what coaches in the NCAA do. I have a lot of respect for what coaches in professional athletics do. I would love to do that as well. I think it'd be a blast. I'd really enjoy it. That being said, if I had a choice between working at name the Power Four, name the NFL school, or working with DevGru or any Delta Tier 1 operator, like, I'm doing that, because that to me is the pinnacle. That is what you said. I'm not playing on Friday or Saturday night or Sunday. I'm playing for lives. I'm playing to not go home in a pine box. I'm gonna send the other motherfucker home in a pine box, because my life, the life of my brothers depend on it. That to me is the ultimate game. That is what it is, and it has to be a win. It has to be a dominant win. I absolutely agree. Like, I've said that to strength coaches before who are in professional athletics, who are in NCAA athletics. They take it as an affront, and I don't mean it as an affront. But once you're around these men and women who do this professionally, that's a whole other level. And to that point, your time at UCLA ends. You leave, you go to the opposite side of the country. Or not opposite side of the country quite yet, but you go middle of the way of the country. You mentioned earlier that it's like, wow, it's like walking into a whole other world. Acronyms are left and right, and it's just like overdrive. What was the experience when you first arrived at Bliss? Do you remember your first day?
I do. A lot of paperwork.
Love love bureaucracy. They love paperwork.
A lot of trainings. I got a list of about 80 websites I had to go to and complete trainings. And a lot of like, holy shit, like, we don't have many resources here.
Yeah.
And so, having to get creative really fast. about how we were going to attack the problem. And yeah, it was a blast. I had so much fun at Fort Bliss and that program and trying to get that thing up off the ground. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's when you notice, you're like, oh yeah, this is what I've been missing. Like, this is the keyhole to my key.
I think it was different. It was what I needed at that time, and I think you do something for a long time and you kind of get used to the way it operates and the way that it feels and the way that it looks. And like being a program director at H2F was a new challenge. It was very unique from what I was doing. I wasn't leading workouts. I had great strength coaches on my staff that did that. I would go help them, but I didn't lead the workouts because I had a lead strength coach and he led the workouts. And I was there as an assistant to help him. And I was there to help with the PT and help with, whatever. It was kind of like, I always kind of joke the job was like a middle school assistant principal. Sometimes I was helping at PE, sometimes I was mopping the floors. Sometimes I was filling out paperwork. It was really whatever needed to be done to improve the program. And that's what I wanted to do. And that's what I needed to do.
Yeah. So you go from there, Texas, then we go all the way opposite side of the country to where you are now. Now, we talked a little before the podcast. There are clearances and there are things we can't talk about. You can't talk about specifically with what you did. Could you go into at least who you're working with and what the physical problems or issues you saw with your experience? Like, okay, I can help these men and women do X, Y, and Z better.
Yeah. I don't work there anymore. So
Okay.
Not like anybody could leverage me for information. So,
Okay.
the unit I work with is called Render Safe. They're the counter weapons of mass destruction response team. So essentially we were taking the best bomb techs in the DOD and the public safety space. So think about like your SWAT team bomb techs, your fire department bomb techs that work in your, major US cities, or your EOD guys from, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, Army, and train them over the course of a period of time to respond to the weapons of mass destruction. So chemical, nuclear, biological, radiological type weapons. And so the population there predominantly was older. So I think the average age there was 46. Guys had completed full military or full public safety careers, 15, 20 years, and then were coming for their second career more on the civilian side. So very similar to the types of problems that I'm seeing now, where there's a lot of miles on the chassis. There's a lot of issues that need to be addressed, but much less kinetic mission than, if you think about like, HRT or, some of these other kind of counterinsurgency, counter-terrorist response forces. If anybody was shooting at our guys, it was a really bad day on the mission. Like the mission for them was very long and slow. Mm-hmm. From talking to them, from initial call out to being able to wrap up, they were probably going to be on the X for 36 hours plus. Mm-hmm. Because you're not doing anything fast when you're working a thermonuclear weapon, or something that has patience, such catastrophic consequences. There's a lot of calculations that need to be done. There's a lot of communication that needs to be done. And the work is very precision. It's not like the movies where you're opening up a thing and cutting a red wire and everything is better. There's a lot that goes into it. So from a physical problem standpoint, dealing with old injuries, dealing with age, mobility and resilience were super important. Making sure that we were able to correct lower back and hip stuff, shoulder issues were a lot of the things that I saw there. And then just for the mission, general strength, everything there was heavy. It was very similar to being at Fort Bliss, where working in an armored division, everything is heavy. So you're dealing with tools and equipment and things that are in Pelican cases that have to get moved onto trucks.
Yeah.
From trucks to helicopters, from helicopters to planes, from planes back to trucks, to go downrange and do the mission. There was a huge mobility component because I would kind of always do this thing when I talk to the guys about training. I was like, well, what does it look like to get to the X? Like, what does the mission look like? And they would just kind of look at me, and I was like, what does it look like? Like the call comes in. What does it look like? What do you do? What was the last time you went out? Well, we haven't, right? Because thank God it's never happened.
Yeah.
So like, but they didn't have an answer because it's like, well, we don't know. Like maybe it's going to be in a sewer. Maybe it's going to be in a Connex box on a stack of 50 Connex boxes that are on a ship. Maybe it's going to be in an airplane. Maybe it's going to, we just don't know. Maybe it's going to be dropped out of an airplane. It's going to be sitting in the mountains somewhere. We're going to have to ski to go get it. Maybe we have to climb. Maybe we have to hike. Maybe we have to rappel. Maybe it's in a dam. So like there's all these people who are thinking about this problem. And then the guys are basically going out and exercising the thought processes of how, if we were the bad guys, how would we go about getting that into here? And so that's what they would work. And then on top of that, you've got to be, on top of the mobility program, you still have to be an expert at the field and the job, which is, disarming weapons of mass destruction. Yeah. And so, those guys, and they're just great. The tools and resources that they could bring to bear on just about anything were amazing. A really cool group of people.
Yeah. So it sounds like, but one of my basic questions I was going to ask on this is, when we were at Bliss and you work with the Armor Division, I had this conversation many times. I'm not sure if you did, but the conversation I would have with these Armor Division soldiers is, well, I'm going to be in a tank. So if I get hit, why the fuck do I need to have mobility? Why do I need to have this? Because it's a fucking tank, and I'm dead, I'm dead. It's a box of death. It's literally an iron coffin. It's what it is. It sounds like to me they didn't have that mentality, or did they? With being a bomb, like if I fuck up, it's done. I don't need to worry about being physically fit.
So there's a couple arguments that I could put to you right away.
Okay,
and there were some people who did think that.
Yeah.
Number one, so I'll answer that with a story.
Perfect.
So I talked about the mobility component and climbing. So we would go and train at this place in Virginia, and there was these ships out there. They were old ships, like old cargo ships, kind of think like Korea, Vietnam era type cargo ships. And they're empty. There's no engines in them. They're just big training vessels. So we went out there one day. I'd done some basics ropes courses, and they're like, hey, come out and do the training with us. So it's July in Virginia, out on the coast, the Atlantic coast. It's very hot. It's very humid.
Very humid.
And we climbed all day. We moved equipment using pulleys and ropes all day long, getting sunburned, straining to climb, rappel, climbing, caving ladders, setting up lines, setting up pulley systems to move boxes and all these things. We were probably out there for 8-9 hours, and we got done. Everybody was kind of standing around. We took a group picture, and then the guy who invited me to come out, he was our lead ropes course training SME, subject matter expert. And I was like, man, that was awesome. I'm exhausted. And he looked me dead in the eye, and he goes, now you got to do your job. Now you got to do your job.
Yeah.
So like I just spent a large amount of time and energy getting myself to the position to where now I have to work. So like if I'm a football player, imagine like having to run to the stadium or climb the side of a mountain to get to the stadium. And then once I got there, now it's time to play. Mm-hmm. And that was like, I was tracking that, but it hadn't hit me until I actually did the work and felt like shit, tired and sunburned and hot and hungry. It was like, oh, now I've got to stick my face into something that if I make one mistake could kill a lot of people. And now I've got to be mentally and physically ready to do that. So like, to me, that argument goes out the window. Yeah. And then just from a general, like aerobic fitness standpoint, if you're going to be working for 36 hours straight, you are going to rely heavily on that aerobic energy system for the longevity piece. And there's only one way to train that, really, and that's in that low, slow zone 2 space. And so, we talked about that quite a bit. And so that argument had been made to me a few times. It was very easily defeatable for me. And I had that argument at Bliss as well, where guys would, say, well, it's a tank. We roll into battle in tanks. I said, yeah, but what if that thing breaks tread?
Exactly.
That's a 70,000-pound paperweight now.
Yeah.
And you still have to fight. Like if the bad guys are coming, you still got to fight, or you got to get out and you got to fix it. And then the next thing is that like, if the people that are running that thing are not of sound mind and body, they're not going to do their jobs well. And like, because you were in an armor brigade, those rounds are not light.
Nope.
Nothing in that brigade is light,
No.
or those battalions are light.
No.
And so like you've got to be strong to be able just to operate in the space.
Yeah. Yeah. I never understood that argument when it was made to me. Like whenever those guys would tell me that, I always brought what you just said. Like, well, let's be honest. It's the army. It's gonna break down. You gotta fix
Yep.
it. You gotta get out. You can't fix it from the inside. You gotta get out.
Yep.
You got the wrenches in and of itself are not light. They're larger than any wrench you're gonna find at Home Depot. So I mean, yeah, I get that. So these guys, when you're going through all that and those 36 hours of training, that was all just set up to then do the job.
Oh.
Theoretically, on a theoretical level. Okay.
All that
But
did
you
was
don't
just
know.
get you to the X.
Yeah, just get you there. Okay. Once they're there, what is, and this almost to a fact what goes into what you're doing now. Again, you're the king of segues. When it comes to health and fitness and like the nutritional aspect, what differences do you feel, even though you're not a registered dietitian, you feel need to be done on a nutritional level to support that type of exertion?
I mean, I think most importantly is having good habits on the front end, so the
Mm-hmm.
body can utilize the fuel that it's given optimally, right? So if I eat, I think it was Dave Tate years ago. Man, crap, I was at Utah State. He wrote an series of articles. He was very heavy, he was very big, and had a lot of health issues. He wrote about this in an article, and he got with John Berardi from Precision Nutrition about helping him, and he was eating close to like 10,000 calories a day of Twinkies and Ho Hos and Star Crunches and pizza, and John Berardi put him on chicken breast and broccoli, and the first time he ate it, he puked everywhere because his body wasn't used to getting good, clean nutrients. It didn't know what to do with it,
Oh.
and so I think that's super important to your baseline needs to be good. Your body needs to be able to take fuel and optimize it so that you can go out and do your thing. So like I used to weigh, probably when you even saw me, I was probably close to 270, 280. And I've lost, close to 50 pounds now. Just my day to day, because my aerobic fitness has improved so dramatically. I just have better energy. I don't feel sleepy middle of the day. I can eat something and don't feel like I need to go take a nap. My overall energy, my mental clarity, my brain fog is better because I have good fuel going into the body constantly. Now, are you going to get, broccoli and chicken breast downrange working a WMD? No. But if your body is attuned to taking in nutrient and it can do what it needs to do with that, when you do have a high stress situation, when you are hungry, you will be much better optimized to handle that than if your diet sucks most of the time. And then you get put in that situation.
How do your
I
joints feel
think
now? How do your joints feel now?
way better. Yeah. Everything feels better. I started running. I ran my first half marathon last year. I run 3 times a week now. I lift 4 times a week, but I'm not lifting heavy like I used to. I'm not just trying to be the biggest guy in the room. I say this when I do teach classes and stuff. Like I want to feel great. I want to live for a long time, and I want to look great naked. That's my goal.
Great goal. It's a great goal. What? Okay, so how many years did you do that for exactly?
What's that?
Work with the FBI, render safe.
4 years. Yeah.
4 years. Okay. In that, did you feel like that third, fourth year, like it was coming to an end, or did you see yourself doing this for as long as you
I had
possibly
no
could?
intention of going anywhere. Again, like I was not looking for this job when this came around. It was very difficult. Like even though like we talked a little bit offline, like the financial and positional implications were dramatically better than what I was doing with the Bureau. I really wrestled with it and was very emotional. That group of people mean the world to me. And they're all still here. I live, in the same neighborhood as them still. Not going there every day is challenging. I'm in a new space where I'm going to have new impact. But yeah, I mean, like that was not a decision that was made lightly on my part. it was really hard to step away from that mission and those people, because it was just like football for me. Like, it was just everything. Like, I just lived and breathed it constantly, thinking about ways to make that thing better, to interact better, to, you know, make sure that those guys, if they came to work with me, came out the other side better than when they got to me. So, yeah, it was not something where I was thinking short term or, next job. It's worked out that way, and it is what it is. But yeah, I was not thinking about leaving there.
Gotcha. And where do you currently see your role at Health Defense University going? If you would like extrapolate out 2 years from now, what do you want to see it be at that point?
I mean, I think 2 years. I'm working for the government now, so 2 years is really like 2 weeks anywhere else. I would love long-term goal for us to have an enterprise-wide executive command health and fitness system, utilizing the best technology that we can find and leverage through phone applications, through wearable technology, where our senior leadership, so I'm thinking like '05 and above, have access to resources that can help them do their jobs better and can help them execute their mission better, and then long-term live out the rest of their lives active and healthy, being able to do what they want to do, and they don't retire at 70 and die at 70 in a week. Like, yeah, like if we can create that type of model, that's what I want to do. Like, I don't want to just touch the students that are at NDU. I want to touch every '05 and above and put something in their hand that either they're using a watch or a ring or some type of wearable technology in conjunction with a mobile application that reaches back to my staff and our SMEs to give them the tools and resources necessary to bring our knowledge to bear and help them do their jobs better and live their lives better. That's the ultimate goal.
And that would be your mission for Health Defense University at this stage, where you see it going, where it should be.
I got to get my email up and running first, but once we get that, okay, I think possibilities are endless.
Nice. Okay, Coach, I know you got to get out here. Got a busy life. Got a lot of people to get in shape. Can you just briefly say, if you had to tell yourself 20 years ago what you know now, what would it be?
You don't know anything. Listen more, talk less, check your ego at the door, read, because if you limit your knowledge, you limit your athletes. Tip the hat to Buddy Morris with that one. Be humble. Also, Buddy Morris, quote here, the only difference between most strength coaches and God is that God doesn't think he's them. And I fell into that trap plenty of times where you think because you're the strength coach and people listen to what you do and they're scared of you because they don't want to do up downs until they puke, that makes you some type of demigod or something, and you're not. You're a servant. I think later in my career, I figured that out, that you have a servant's heart. You're there to serve the students. You're there to serve the administration. You're there to serve the coaches. It's not about you. And I used to tell the guys at BYU and Virginia and UCLA that, like, we should do like Batman. Like, you should see the results of our work, but you should never see us doing it. I never liked the guys that were on the sideline with, the extra medium shirts on and the towels and the spiked shoulder pads and, the ridiculous chain, like breaking boards over each other's backs. Like ripping their shirts off and doing up downs in the middle of the field and pregame. Like, it's not about you. Like, people are not buying tickets to go watch the fucking strength coach. Like, the kids, like, they see that and they know that you're just a selfish, self-absorbed asshole. Like, yeah, it's a cool show and it's great, but that doesn't make anybody around you better. And I got tied up in that stuff when I was younger, and glad that I had mentors that showed me the way to not be like that. But man, like, just don't make it about you. Make it about the kids. Make it about the coaches. Make it about the program, and things are going to work out the way they need to.
Gotcha. Well, Coach, I appreciate you dropping by, giving us your time. I'm going to get you out of here. If you can stick around for like 2 or 3 minutes, we'll get some ones and twos from you and get you on your way. I appreciate it.
Yeah, buddy. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.